We are literally living in the most technologically advanced civilization in human history. I mean, it's genuinely breathtaking when you actually stop and think about it. But despite all of this completely unprecedented progress, there's a really fascinating contradiction right at the heart of our modern lives. We have this immense technological power, right? Yet so many of us still grapple with this lingering, almost heavy existential dread. So welcome to this Explainer. Today we're going to dive into a profound mystery. That stark contrast between our modern scientific mastery and the lost wisdom of ancient civilizations. It really makes you wonder, did they understand reality in a way that we've somehow just forgotten? Think about what we pull off on a daily basis. We have smartphones that instantly connect billions of people across the globe. We've got powerful AIs solving incredibly complex problems in mere seconds. We've mapped the human genome, we've literally walked on the moon, and we've even sent spacecraft entirely beyond our solar system. We have achieved absolute mastery over the physical world. But this sets up what we can call the paradox of progress. Because despite all of these unbelievable feats, millions of people still lie awake at night staring at the ceiling, asking the exact same questions our ancestors asked thousands of years ago.
Questions like, who am I? It is the absolute most fundamental question of human existence. And you know what? Despite mountains of data, it remains entirely unresolved. Or, why do I exist? We have supercomputers capable of trillions of calculations every single second. We have telescopes peering into galaxies billions of light years away. Yet, none of them have solved this profound mystery for us.
And ultimately, what happens after death? If we've become so incredibly advanced, why is it that these core human questions still have zero universal answers? This brings us to a super fascinating premise. Could it be that ancient civilizations actually offer us a completely different lens for our own lives? Not because they had better tech, obviously they didn't, but because they possessed an entirely different framework for understanding life itself.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1, the modern paradox. Are we missing something? We have immense capabilities, but an equally immense lack of universal answers to our deepest questions.
Moving on to Section 2, two views of reality. Physical versus spiritual. Today, our default definition of reality relies almost entirely on the physical, measurable universe. But ancient minds? They didn't operate under that strict limitation at all.
You see, for many ancient civilizations, reality was just vastly larger than the physical world we could measure. To them, the visible, measurable world was just one single layer of existence. It was like a giant puzzle, and we could only see a few of the pieces. They believed that behind the mountains, beyond the stars, and hidden right outside of ordinary sight, there were whole spiritual dimensions, a realm where the divine interacted directly with creation. They viewed reality as this massive, expansive integration of both the visible and the unseen. Now, we aren't here to debate the literal truth of those beliefs today, but we do want to explore this framework, because adopting it completely changes the kinds of questions you even ask about the universe.
We can actually see this expanded view of reality perfectly preserved in ancient texts. Take the Bible, for example. It frequently describes reality extending far beyond human sight, speaking of a creator of both the visible and the invisible, and detailing these intense moments where the spiritual profoundly intersects with the physical world. Another totally fascinating example is the Book of Enoch, which paints this incredibly vivid picture of heavenly beings and hidden cosmic events. And whether these were historically viewed as literal events, deep theological reflections, or just symbolic literature, the point is, these texts historically shaped human thought. They constantly invited readers to consider that reality is just so much deeper than surface appearances suggest.
So, the crucial point is Section 3, asking why versus how. A completely different inquiry. Because ancient thinkers believed in a deeper, hidden order, they engaged with an entirely different set of foundational questions than we do today.
Modern civilization is brilliantly, remarkably good at explaining the how. We know exactly how gravity functions, how DNA is inherited, and the precise mechanics of how stars are formed. We literally have the mechanics down completely. But ancient thought, they tirelessly sought the why. Why does anything exist at all? Why do we humans seek meaning? Why does beauty move us? Why do we long for justice, love, and hope? These why questions simply cannot be answered by scientific equations alone. They require a completely different type of understanding.
And that brings us to the concept of wisdom. Ancient philosophers and spiritual teachers believed that truly understanding reality required way more than just gathering information or memorizing random facts. They defined wisdom as something that begins with humility, just acknowledging that you and I were small parts of a vast, complex order. It's about deeply understanding the purpose behind things, rather than just hoarding a catalog of data about how those things operate.
Which naturally brings us to Section 4, Science and the Unseen, a hidden reality. We so often think of science as tearing down those ancient ideas of a hidden world, but as it turns out, modern discovery paints a much more surprising picture.
Consider the electromagnetic spectrum for a second. Only a tiny microscopic sliver of it represents visible light, literally the entirety of what we can see. The massive remaining slice, that represents the invisible, radio waves, gravity, dark matter. And this brilliantly illustrates that the more science advances, the more it actually proves that the vast, overwhelming majority of reality is entirely invisible to our natural senses. We are absolutely surrounded by realities our senses cannot detect.
This brings us to a really profound core takeaway. The limits of our senses are not necessarily the limits of reality. Now, this doesn't inherently prove ancient spiritual beliefs, but it absolutely validates their basic premise, doesn't it? There are microscopic organisms constantly surrounding us, and invisible dark matter holding entire galaxies together that we can't observe directly. We modern humans fully accept that an invisible reality dictates our physical world. So in that sense, maybe we aren't so different from the ancients after all.
Section 5. Knowledge versus wonder, information or purpose. If both ancient and modern minds accept a hidden reality, we really have to ask, has our surplus of information come at a philosophical cost?
Think about it. Ancient civilizations lived beneath open skies. They watched the stars without the glare of city lights, engaging in silent contemplation, and building rich traditions just around asking questions of ultimate meaning. Contrast that with modern life. We are constantly connected to a grid of endless data, yet we suffer from persistent, exhausting distraction. We possess way more facts than any generation before us, for sure, but endless data hasn't cured our deep struggle for purpose. Actually, maybe the ancients were wiser, not because they possessed more facts, but because they intentionally cultivated the space and the wonder to never stop asking life's deepest questions.
Section 6, a lesson in humility. We are limited. If there's one overarching theme to take away from all this, it's that history repeatedly, and sometimes brutally, humbles every single generation that believes it finally has all the answers.
The human journey is completely defined by unending quests across all disciplines. Every single time science uncovers a new fact, it just reveals a dozen new mysteries. Faith continues to explore the timeless questions of the human soul. Philosophy is still vigorously debating what consciousness and existence actually are. Perhaps reality is just far more mysterious than either ancient civilizations or modern society fully understands. True wisdom, it seems, isn't about claiming the search is over. It starts by looking at these unending quests and just recognizing the massive vastness of the unknown.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty provocative thought. If the great thinkers of the ancient world were alive today, looking at our smartphones, our spaceships, and our perfectly mapped genomes, do you think they'd just be amazed by our technology? Or do you think they would look at our distracted, anxious society and remind us of truths we've entirely forgotten? I would absolutely love to hear how you weigh that out, so definitely share your thoughts in the comments below. And be sure to subscribe, because we're going to keep exploring the incredible mysteries, hidden questions, and frameworks that have fascinated humanity for thousands of years. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep asking the big questions.